Alright, CNT125, Network Management Wireless Lab. I just got done configuring the router. So we have the switch and the router configured for our network. So I'm going to look at my link lights, make sure link lights are good. I'm then going to take my workstations. I'm going to take one of my workstations, plug it into a VLAN 10 port, and I'm going to take the other one and plug it into a VLAN 30 port. Okay, the VLAN 10 is employee, VLAN 30 is wireless. So in my example, I took my left PC and plugged it into VLAN 10, and my right PC and plugged it into VLAN 30. What I'm going to do next is pull up the command prompt and do an IP config, see if I'm picking up an IP address from my network. If I'm not, do the whole release renew thing. Release, renew, and make sure I do pick one up. Okay, do that for both PCs. And I should be picking up, in this case, I should be picking up an 8 from my employee VLAN. My other PC should be picking up a 24 from the wireless VLAN. Now, if you're not getting those, we need to start doing some troubleshooting. Here's what you want to check. Check your cables. Okay, check your cables. Be 1,000,000% sure they are correct. Secondly, go back to your switch and double check your VLANs are correct. And your trunking is correct. Don't forget trunking on port 24. Once those are right, in your router you're going to check your sub-interfaces and then your DHCP scopes. So in your router we're going to be checking for... Actually, let me move my console cable into the switch real quick. Let me move my console cable into the switch. You're checking for this on your switch. There we go. Enable class. I'm checking to make sure on my switch that I have my VLANs on here correctly. My VLAN, my first 10 ports should have access VLAN 10 and voice VLAN 20. If that doesn't look correct, go back to that range and make sure you do, switch port access VLAN 10 and then do switch port voice VLAN 20 so they're both sitting on there. And then make sure the 15 to 20 range is switch port access VLAN 30. And then don't forget your trunking here on 24. Make sure all those are on there. Okay? So once you've checked that on your switch and changed it if you need to, then we'll move the console back to the router. And again, if you're not getting an IP, you're going to look for these things on the router. So on my router, I'm back at my router now. Let's do a show run again. All right. Make sure your excluded addresses are correct. These should be, and you're looking at every digit now, we should have 8.1 to 8.10 if you're following my example. 16.1 to 16.10, 24.1 to 24.10. If you get those wrong, you might be holding more numbers back, and your router might not actually be handing them out. So make sure those are correct. If any of those are wrong, highlight the wrong one, copy it, go back to your configuration terminal, config T, and say no, and paste that in, and it'll get rid of that line. And then put the correct line in. Then look at your DHCP scopes. Make sure your networks are correct, 8.0 with your subnet mask. Make sure all the digits are there. Make sure your default router is correct, and DNS. Okay, DNS is not affecting anything we're looking at right now. Do the same thing for the voice and the wireless. Make sure the numbers are correct. If any of those are wrong, just go back into that pool, IP DHCP pool voice, for example, okay, or employee, for example. Use the same syntax, and just write the line over. Redo the line that's not correct. It'll write over top of that. The next thing to check is make sure your sub-interfaces are correct. Make sure these are correct. Make sure these addresses and subnet masks are correct. Once you correct any of those, then try your release renew again, and you should be picking up an IP. Okay? You should at least be getting an IP. If not, ask for help now, after you've tried those troubleshooting things yourself. So once we're sure we get IPs, and I'm sure both of mine get an IP, the next thing we want to check is the NAT functioning? In other words, do we have internet connection? If I open a browser, and I'm going to do that right now, if I open a browser and I open a page like Google or Hack, can I get to it? And I should be able to open like Google homepage or Hack homepage. If I can, excellent. And if I can on both computers, excellent. If I cannot, I'm going to go back and do this troubleshooting. Okay. Check your cables again. Check your cables. On the router, we're going to make sure the interfaces are on correctly. So here, I'm going to be looking for my outside interface, IP address DHCP, and I'm going to make sure it also says IPNet outside. I'm going to make sure both of those are there. If one of those is missing, go back to the interface and add it. The second thing I need to do is I need to make sure all the sub-interfaces have the inside on. So I'm going to be looking at my sub-interface 10, look for IPNet inside. 20, IPNet inside. 30, IPNet inside. That's what I'm looking for. Add any of those that might be missing. Okay. The last thing I'm checking is these two down here. These overload lines and these permit lines. I need to make sure my permits are correctly for each subnet. 192.168.0 and make sure the inverse mask is correct. So make sure those are correct. And then up here, I need to make sure IPNet inside source list 1, 1, 2, 3. And I need to make sure this is the outside interface. Okay, I need to make sure this is the outside interface. And then I say overload. If one of these are wrong, you can just say no access list 3. It'll get rid of it. And, put the correct line back in, if you will. Up here, we can try taking this one out and replacing with the correct. Sometimes it gets entrenched and you might need some more help. So if you can't take it out and replace it, give a shout. Okay, then we can help you out with that one. Once you get those fixed, then again try your homepage here. Try the Google homepage, try the Hack homepage, and make sure you can browse out. Okay, make sure all that is functioning before you go any further, especially before we go adding in the wireless. All right, we'll come back in the next part and start adding in the wireless.